We are here with state economist David Cooke to hear about employment figures for January. David, can you give us a summary of Oregon's employment situation?
Oregon's unemployment rate in January was 3.3%. So the rate is at a historic low, the lowest figure since records began in 1976. And furthermore, we revised the unemployment rates for all of last year, and now the rates are showing 4.2% to start 12 months ago in January 2019. Since then, Oregon's unemployment rate has been drifting downward pretty steadily, down to 3.4% in December and then 3.3% in January.
And what can you tell us about job gains in January?
So in January, the payroll employment numbers showed a drop of 1,800 jobs over the month, and that followed a gain of 800 jobs over the month in December. So the January numbers were strongest in healthcare and social assistance, which added 1,600 jobs, and government, which added 1,200 jobs. And three of the major industries had over the month drops of more than 1,000 jobs. So we had manufacturing down 1,200 and construction down 1,400. So those two industries are in the goods producing sector. And then professional and business services cut 2,900 jobs. So that's a big industry in Oregon that has shown much weaker trends lately than in the past several years.
And how do this month's job numbers differ from what we've seen over Oregon in the past year or the past few years?
So what we're seeing is a moderation in the growth rate. We're seeing over the past 12 months, payroll employment is up close to 1%. It's up 0.9% over those 12 months. And that's a slowdown in the growth rate compared to the previous several years. Oregon's economy had been growing quite fast, let's say in 2015, 2016, up about 3% a year. And then the next year it was a deceleration, more deceleration. And over the last 12 months, we've seen even more of a deceleration of employment. And what we're seeing is some of the industries that had been very strong in terms of payroll employment growth slowing down considerably. One of those is construction, which is still at a record high, but it's essentially flat compared to last January. And another industry is the professional and business services, which we mentioned that had the drop in January. That industry is also quite flat over the past 12 months, and that had been a very strong industry in terms of job growth in the prior several years.
What do the January employment and unemployment figures mean for Oregon's economy?
So these numbers show that Oregon's labor market is very tight. That 3.3% unemployment number is unprecedented really in the last 50 years, definitely going back to 1976 when comparable records began. And so we're similar to the U.S. The U.S. unemployment rate was 3.6% in January. Oregon's 3.3%, very close to the U.S. figure. Very tight labor market. Also, these numbers, we revise the data going back a couple years. Every year we do this, we revise the numbers at this time of the year. And the new numbers are showing a tighter labor market than the numbers that we released with our last press release 6 weeks ago. So some of these unemployment rates got revised down by up to 0.6 of a percentage point in late 2019. So the data is much tighter than we originally estimated, or somewhat tighter, but it's very tight historically in terms of the labor market.